Welcome to Tabletop Gaming with Juice. I'm Juice, and this video is a Chapter 2 Dungeon Master Guide Thoughts video. I've read through the second chapter now, and I must say, when I began reading it, I wasn't that interested. I've never been one who is into the planes, right? And this chapter focuses strictly on the different planes, the material plane, the outer plane, any inner planes. So after reading this, though, it's opened up my thoughts a little bit on the idea of playing in them. So chapter 2 is titled Creating a Multiverse. And like I said, this is a pretty good chapter, actually. It's well written. If you're not familiar with the planes, I definitely recommend reading this. Maybe it's something you've never really thought of dabbling in. But maybe this will open your mind like it did mine. So anyways, so I started reading. Like I said, I was a little bit down on it, wasn't really looking forward to it, and was reading the different ways you can envision your planes, such as like the Great Wheel, the World Tree, the World Axis, which the World Axis kind of emulates what we currently kind of have, with Earth and then space and things like that, and what many believe to be like, oh, hell's down underground and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, the World Tree, it talks about that being kind of like the Norse mythology, and so I thought that was kind of good too. So it just made me think a little bit, and then it made me think, well, how would I envision it for my D&D worlds? The book states that as you get higher in level, you're going to need some kind of explanation, and you're going to need to have your characters go there. I don't agree with that. I think you could have a perfectly fine campaign without ever having to travel to another plane. But having extra planes can make things interesting. It can change up the pace of your game and completely throw your players for a loop. So it is something that I think is good to have in your arsenal as a dungeon master. So anyways, so those were the three it mentioned, and then it goes into other visions, and it lists a bunch there. Not going to get into that too much, but one of them is, for instance, Mount Olympus for Greek mythology. So that was kind of cool that they make reference to that. It then talks about planar travel, which, was whatever to me. And then it goes into spells and how some of the spells can kind of work, because I think there's a spell for gate, plane shift, and those are the two that are listed here. And it kind of tells you how you can use those. And then it goes into the astral plane, which I thought was kind of interesting. I believe this is the one where you have to travel by your intelligence. Yes. So your speed has nothing to do with how fast you are. It's all down to your intelligence and how well you can control your movement that way. So that was kind of interesting. And then on the astral plane, it even mentions that you have to be very careful because other creatures could attack you, and whether they're angels or devils and all this, because this is what's kind of used to travel to the different dimensions. On the astral plane, there are gates, and it lists them where they go to and what their color is. So these basically like portals. So that's kind of nice that they do that as well. It's something you can use for flavor in your games instead of saying, oh, you have a swirling vortex that is appearing to be like a gate of some sort. I don't know. Thought that was cool. The ethereal plane talks a little bit about that. That was okay as well. Once again, every single section in here tells you what the gates to the different planes are, because it changes based on where you're at, which is pretty cool. Almost every single one has an optional rule or optional rules of some sort that are related to that plane. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into what my favorite parts were. My favorite parts of this chapter that I could see myself using the most are the Feywild and Shadowfell. The fact that they're more, in my opinion, relatable to our current world, or your current D&D world, I think make it easier and better. For instance, you go to the Feywild, it's a little bit more fantastic and beautiful. but everything's pretty much like where everything is pretty much the same as whatever your world is. So I thought that was kind of cool. I like that. I was reading through it, and it talks about like two queens that have a rivalry, and while they're not necessarily good and evil, one all the people that follow it are, well, not all, most of the people that follow this queen are good, and most of the ones that follow this queen are evil. Then there's a couple outliers that are like the hags and things like that. And so, yeah, so they're always rivaling with each other. So I like that. It's a cool, unique story that you could say, hey, my players are, boom, here you are. You are in the Feywild, and you're just kind of thrust into this. It's very colorful, bright. The time of day never changes. Like I said, it's beautiful. So it would be kind of cool to throw them into this beautiful place and then have them running for their lives from these, certain creatures. So I thought that was kind of cool. The other thing that was really cool to me with the Shadowfell was that it's the complete opposite. It's dark, it's scary, it's a lot of undead and fiends and these just dark things. And I like how they describe where you might find the portals for both of these areas. For instance, in the Shadowfell, you might find it in shadows or in a crypt, in a really dark corner, in a tomb, things like that. I really liked that. And then you have an explanation for why creatures can cross over to your D&D world, whatever your world is. So, excuse me. So I really like that. It does mention that Neverwinter has its crossover in the Shadowfell as was it Evernight? Same city, but it's dark. It's run, by a bunch of undead vampires and things like that. So I really, really liked that. So those are my two favorite parts of this chapter. The ones that I could see myself actually using, maybe in the near future. Will I use it? I don't know. I'm still not necessarily sold on using planar things. But if I do, those will be the two I probably use over anything else. Going back a little bit, I think it was the ethereal plane. The ethereal plane. Was that the one? Sorry, just a moment. No, not the ethereal plane. Inner planes. I can't remember which one. One of them. Okay, well, anyways, one of the planes, I can't remember which one, mentions that time stands still. And humanoids and things like that never age. And so the idea, and maybe it was the Feywild, but they never age. And so, for instance, the Githyanki, which I'm probably saying that wrong, in order to raise children, they set up posts on the material plane so that their children can grow up, and then they bring them back to their plane, where they're actually from. So that was kind of interesting. And it made it make sense that why something would come over to the material plane. You get into the elemental planes. It was all right. I mean, I like that they include different different locations under each one. I do like that. There's a lot of flavor in this chapter, and it makes you think about things a little bit. And like I'm already thinking like how I could use all of this in my campaigns, which is good. I think that's a great thing. Great thing to be able to do is open one of these books and read about it, and just the ideas start flowing. But yeah, I don't. I've never been real familiar with the planes in the first place, and I've said this before, but I was rubbed wrong a little bit by the first Dragon Age game with the Fade. So that kind of soured me on the idea of getting stuck in planes. So if I were to do something, I would have to, I think in my mind, really plan it out a little, really well to keep it interesting and not spend a lot of time there. Because I feel like for me, I don't want to spend a lot of time in a whole nother world that once my character's gone, I don't really care what happens there, kind of thing. So, yeah, that's just me though. and feel free to disagree with me. That's fine. Just my own personal taste and flavor, I guess. I'm just not that into the planes. I could see how the Feywild and Shadowfell would really work for me. But besides that, I don't know how much I would want to do in these other areas. But again, there's more optional rules as you get further in, such as traveling the outer planes. It talks about psychic dissonance, blessed beneficence in another section, pervasive goodwill in another section. All sorts of optional rules in here, and I like them. It really, in my opinion, it works. And the artwork in this section is actually really nice. It gives you a feel. Excuse me. Gives you a feel, for what these places would look like, and they make mention through here about like the gods of your world maybe live on a certain plane or live on multiple planes. And I like that. I like that they talk about Hades and the Abyss. They even give you a monster in here called Larva. And it's for Hades. It's vile transformation. So I thought that was kind of cool. Because it's like, oh yeah, I guess that would make sense. You're stuck somewhere for a while. Maybe you slowly turn into something. It does go into the 9 layers of hell. So, or the 9 hells. So again, that's another good area. And I've thought about doing something with like that or Hades in a game before. Like maybe a player dies, right? And the player group shortly after that finds out that person is sent to hell or Hades. And so they have to go and rescue that person. Or that player goes to hell, right? And so you cut to that player a minute later after they die. You say, okay, you're in this place, and you describe it, and it's hell or Hades or whatever. And you give them a chance to return to their body just to see what they would do. Maybe you force them into a pact. Maybe you come up with some kind of agreement. So then you get a small little section of them playing through there. And in the time that they work out this agreement with this god or whatever, or this gatekeeper, the other players get sucked in because of the agreement. And now they're in there. And so they have to travel through there to find the exit, to then get to the material plane, get this item or kill somebody or whatever they need to do. And then they are basically set free. Or they can get out to the material plane and decide not to, and now they brought on a whole heap of trouble on themselves. So I like that idea. It does talk about Acheron, Arcadia, Mechanus, which Mechanus is where Modron are from. Everyone loves the Modrons, I think. At least I do. I think they're kind of funny looking, but I like them. Some people hate them. Who am I kidding? But I think they're kind of interesting. So I like those, and it has optional rules for that plane, and then it goes into some more outland or other planes. I'm sorry, and so it talks about some more planes. So I thought that was cool. Demi planes, far realm, and then known worlds of the material plane. And so it talks about some of the different settings that D&D has done, and throughout this chapter, it makes mention of some of the different settings, like Forgotten Realms, Mystera, Eberron, Ravenloft. It makes mention of these and how they use these planes. So yeah. But chapter 2 is a really good chapter. It has opened up my eyes a little bit to the idea of running some planar adventures, or maybe a one-shot in one of these planes or something. So I do like it. I will probably read this a few more times because I do want to learn more about the planes. Anything I can add to my DM toolbox to be a better DM and spruce up my games and things like that, I'm always up for doing. So yeah, what are your thoughts on planes? what are your thoughts on Chapter 2 of the Dungeon Master Guide? Let me know. Be sure to check out rpgjuice.com. I have a blog up there. I have a podcast coming very soon. I have in my download section, I have 2 5th edition characters I've made. I also have drinking rules for RPGs, and then, I mean, you can use it for D&D, Pathfinder, whatever game, percentile-based games, all that good stuff. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon, my Twitter, my Facebook. Follow me on all 3. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, you already know this, but if you're watching this on whatever, Reddit, Facebook, anything else, be sure to find me on YouTube, Tabletop Gaming with Juice, and subscribe. Also, like, comment, and please share this with your friends. Anyone who doesn't have the DM's guide, who you know might be getting it on the 9th, make sure you share this with them so they can get a little preview. Or, you know, maybe they aren't, but you just feel like sharing it with some gamer friends. And also, something that's not on here, go to the Tabletop RPG One-Shot group on Facebook. It is the best place you can go to find players. You can run games through it. You can find campaigns through it. You can just talk RPGs, but ultimately the beauty of the group with 500 members almost is that we're all about playing games. It's all about finding some people to play a game with, starting an event on that page, and boom, running or playing your game. You could choose to run it on Google+. You can choose to run it on Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, Skype, a chat room, whatever you want. But ultimately, that group is to help you guys find players. So with that, like I said, I am Juice with Tabletop Gaming with Juice. So have a good day, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.